Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Ready for your next big move? The trip from the fridge to the couch. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Welcome back. It's Thursday's football show. Nathan with you this evening. Good chat there with Brian Barry Murphy. That will be up among all our podcasts on the OTB SPORTS app. Just an update on the golf, by the way. Padraig Harrington just one shot off the lead in the opening round of the USPGA at Kiawah Island. He's 2 under par through 11 holes. The lead held on 3 under par by Keegan Bradley, Victor Hovland, Brooks Koepka, Aaron Wise, who were all in the clubhouse, and then Corey Connors and Brandon Grace also on 3 under par. Shane Lowry is in the group just 2 shots back on 1 under par. Rory McIlroy 3 over par opening round of 75. It's only 6 off the lead, but it's in a tie for 101st, so plenty of work for him to do tomorrow. But Harrington, we'll be keeping a close eye over the next few hours. Stewie Byrne is in studio. Good evening, sir.
Good to be here. How are you, Nathan?
I'm alright. League of Ireland, calm and quiet as ever.
We have a great way of getting some PR for ourselves, don't we, really?
Yeah.
When you think about it.
There's no such thing as bad PR. It's something that the League of Ireland tests on a weekly basis.
No such thing as bad PR. I just need to kind of hone in that, focus in on a positive way forward.
So today there was some rather fascinating news. Jim Magilton confirmed that Jim McGuinness, the Donegal All-Ireland winning football manager, is in the frame for the Dundalk job. It seemed initially earlier in the day as if he was right in the frame and maybe was on the verge of being appointed. Jim Magilton, of course, has moved to soccer. He was at Celtic. He went to China. He has been managing over in America. He's doing his pro license. So he's not coming in from nowhere. He wants to dedicate his life to football. As it went on this evening, then it seems that there might be a role for him, but he's unlikely to get the manager's job. I'll read you the reports from Dan McDonnell in The Independent from the press conference today. So Jim Magilton, who's the sporting director, currently manager at Dundalk, confirmed he's spoken with Jim McGuinness about the vacant manager's job, but stressed that the former Donegal GAA boss is just one of the candidates in the frame as they look to finalise a shortlist. There are suggestions that the upshot of talks with McGuinness may prove to be consideration for a shorter term coaching role as opposed to the main job. Magilton was asked directly about McGuinness today, didn't dismiss the speculation while being coy about where he stood in relation to the position. I spoke to Jimmy, I did, said Magilton. I've always been a huge fan. I've always loved the GAA and I liked his approach to Donegal, a winning brand. I was at Celtic a few times when McGuinness was working there. Jim has been a successful manager, albeit in a different sport. I believe there are crossovers, no question about that. I treat these guys with the utmost respect. They've been at the highest end. They've dealt with the pressure. They know how to get the best out of individuals and teams. Conversations with these guys are very important. You get different perspectives on all aspects. It's just conversations. I've spoken to other people. Earlier, Magilton had said he could be, when he was asked directly if McGuinness was in the running. People call me, we've had really good conversations about all things football and all things with the club, and I've enjoyed them. What do you make of that?
I think there's a lot in that, but I think if you really read into what Magilton's actually saying, Nathan, I think we're looking at a situation here where they need to get somebody in who's good at maybe motivating, somebody that can facilitate between the club, as in the ownership of the club, and the players, and somebody who can manage that situation. I think they're struggling at the moment since Stephen Kenny's gone, and then ultimately since Vinny's kind of moved on as well. They're struggling to get a manager in that I suppose that can deal with the ownership, because it's an American ownership. There's a particular way the owners run the club. It wouldn't be probably the traditional way. And this, I suppose, when you look at what's happened in recent time, there's plenty of evidence of the difference in culture between how Americans run soccer clubs and how we like soccer clubs.
In a way, a McGuinness appointment would go against everything that we've heard about the American owners, whose view is that while Dundalk is an Irish football club, it shouldn't be limited by Irish football in terms of the players that are playing at the club. That actually a Sean Gannon and a Sean Hoare can leave, and that's fine, because actually there's a big wide world out there and we can sign players from any part of it.
Yeah, that'll be at the detriment. It's the football club isn't just about how maybe the American owners feel they should run it. There's a lot more at stake here. There's supporters who are going to pay in, week out, to watch the football club. You got to bring them along with you as well. I mean, these American owners were in negotiations at the end of last year with the FAI and the IRFU to take over the management of the Aviva Stadium, with the hopes that maybe Dundalk could play some of their games there. That's just crazy stuff. That's just away with the fairy stuff. And it's totally against... I see you nodding your head there, but it's totally against... Hang on.
It is if the FAI wasn't in such financial calamity at the time and maybe they spotted an opportunity. Yeah, but I understand exactly Dundalk playing at the Aviva Stadium.
The reality is what's happening at Dundalk is totally contrary to what I feel, and this is only my opinion, what should be happening in the game here. You look at the likes of Bohemians, Sligo Rovers, Finn Harps now, all getting their act together, you know, putting together proper business plans to either redevelop or build new stadia. Bohemians, or Dalymount's going to happen, okay? Sligo Rovers are now following on, all off the back of what Shamrock Rovers did, which is basically a kind of a community-based model in line with the county council, you know, in line with national funding. That's the only way this is really going to work, and to have a viable, sustainable future. But Dundalk, when you think about, you know, have never really attempted to kind of go down that road. I know they had negotiations with Louth, with the GAA, which fell apart. I can only imagine that it fell apart maybe because of probably the demands that the American owners wanted to have.
But we don't know that.
We don't know that, but they are making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And it only, for me, it only highlights how, you know, how wonderful a job Stephen actually did, and Vinny, to be fair to him, when they were at the football club.
Yeah, the behind-the-scenes aspect of this is so disappointing. From the opportunity was there with the money that came in.
That's
from
everything,
Europe.
Nathan.
And I know the money isn't quite at the level that it looks from the outside because there's so many costs that are involved with getting to the Europa League and playing in the Europa League. But that there's been no great overhaul to Oriel Park or great plans for an overhaul to Oriel Park. There's not been a massive investment in the youth system where Dundalk could become the best of the best in the country. You know, Shamrock Rovers have probably taken on that mantle, and all of that behind the scenes is now starting to be reflected on the pitch. And it's interesting there that Jim McGuinness talks about a winning brand, how he's loved the GEA, he liked his approach, a successful manager, albeit in a different sport. There are crossovers, no question about that. There is one major difference though. This is professional sport and people's livelihoods are at stake, which isn't the case when you're managing a GEA team.
Absolutely. And there's also, there's a how do I put it? There's a kind of a there's a difference to managing a Gaelic club than it is to managing a soccer team. Completely different. It's a completely technical different thing for a player. A player moves differently, takes up different positions, he acts differently. Like, you know, that all takes time to learn to manage. And I would just be worried about. I'd say he's wonderful in an interview. I'd say he's a fantastic motivator. And maybe that might help Dundalk in this period, and maybe that's the reason why Magilton is talking about it in that terms.
But that's why I was surprised by those comments. That actually, like, you could make a case for Jim McGuinness getting a job like this.
You could,
but it's not based on what he's done with Donegal. That should be a small part of it. It should be Jim McGuinness has taken advantage of the success he had with Donegal and the connections through that to go to Celtic, to learn a lot you would expect at Celtic, to go to China. He's obviously very good at making those connections around world football. He's taken a job in America. It didn't go particularly well, but he's not just saying, I managed Donegal to a All-Ireland title, give me a job in soccer. He's actually trying to make a livelihood. He's on the pro licence. And I thought it was surprising that Magilton, if McGuinness is to have any sort of a job, didn't make that case. That actually, here's someone with a great background in another sport, very successful, as you say. We know he's a brilliant motivator, and he has worked his ass off in the last 7-8 years to educate himself in football. Whereas that seems to be actually, he did quite well with Donegal, so who knows?
Yeah, so that's the worrying thing for me. And by the way, so have so many other pro licensed coaches worked their ass off and even longer in the game, and probably, you know, and they'll be rubbed up seriously the wrong way. There'll be hell of a lot of coaches out there who feel they deserve a shot at the Dundalk job, and it's not going to go the way. Ultimately, it's up to Dundalk to decide who suits them at this moment in time. And from the outside looking in, the club is all over the place. Okay, there's all sorts of unusual activity going on with regards to the ownership. I would even hazard to say the owners are on record as saying they're rethinking. They would be rethinking their ownership of the football club, because they've been very frustrated by the bureaucracy of the Irish system. It's a different system to what they thought it would have been, and they're finding it very frustration. I don't know, you need to read between the lines. I don't know what the brief is for Jim Magilton to go and get a manager It may be to get somebody in to kind of steady the ship, motivate the players. Maybe somebody that might, that the Dundalk fans might say, do you know what, yeah, maybe. And that might work because, to be fair, to put the positive on it, McGuinness has got a record of managing a regional town like Donegal, galvanising the people, galvanising the club. Maybe that's the brief here. Ultimately, I think it's a short-term goal, Nathan, and I don't like the looks of it.
Listen, Dundalk supporters, get in touch and let us know what you think about this possibility. I suspect if things were going well and it was a well-formed plan to bring Jim McGuinness in, there might have been a bit of intrigue and excitement. When you're 11 games into the season and you've only won twice, and as you say, you need an experienced head, that it feels like this is another sideshow for Dundalk. You've been in this scenario, and listen, there's lots of different reasons and many examples of League of Ireland clubs who go from great heights to massive lows and out of business in a pretty rapid period. But when you even think back to your time with Shelbourne, when you went from the highs of, you know, Champions League football to real lows and going out of business, what's it like when you're in a dressing room and it's all falling apart?
Well, do you know what, Nathan? 2006, right? Shells had huge success up until 2006, and in 2006 was the year where the financial situation of the football club, you really started to see the cracks, and you knew it was coming. However, it actually galvanised the club, it galvanised the players, okay, and it was because of Pat Fenlon, the manager. He was able to tap into that frustration. I don't know how he did it. I can remember having all sorts of conversations with Pat in his house after training, or even at night, with the struggles that we were having financially wise. We had conversations with Ollie Byrne, and this was constantly going out right from pre-season, from the start of the season, right through that 2006 season. Yet we were still able to go and win the league that year, in what were extremely difficult circumstances. But it's almost like we knew it was going to collapse, Nathan, and we knew it was gone. And we won the league, and then literally the next day we knew the club was gone, and it fell off a cliff. We were devastated. I wanted to spend the rest of my career at Shells. So did the whole club, all the players. Nobody wanted to go away from that football club because ultimately because of what we were trying to achieve as a group. But I would say that Pat Fenlon as a manager was really the kind of the glue that kept everyone together. So that's the way Dundalk are looking at the Magilton situation. But
has there been any sign of that so far, of the players coming together?
I don't think so. I think the problem is there's too many new players coming. They've lost all their experienced players. That dressing room was bred and developed to maintain itself. There was a culture in the dressing room that the players fed off each other and drove each other. And Stephen Kenny isn't the best coach in the world when it comes to management. When it comes to just knowing how to get a tune out of a player, that's his gift, that's his skill, and that's what he was able to do. But the problem for Dundalk now is that they are making mistake after mistake after mistake, and they're making, appointing the wrong manager last year when Vinny left. So I never agreed with Vinny going at the stage that he did. Never brought in Filippo when he did, but it's all started to kind of unravel since then, and they now have a situation where all their experienced players have moved on. They're the players that dragged other players along. They've moved on now, and you've got a completely new dressing room, and it's all kind of happened. It's kind of one perfect storm, really.
Yeah, and it means, unfortunately, again, then rather than looking ahead to Dundalk against Shamrock Rovers tomorrow night and being excited about this seismic fixture in the League of Ireland, it's behind-the-scenes mess that is dominating again. We're out of time, unfortunately, Stewie. Anyway, Shamrock Rovers don't win this league?
I think it look really strong. I think it's the next couple of weeks will tell a huge story, Nathan. I think Pat's Sligo Rovers, they have to keep in touch. I mean, Pat's playing Bows at home tomorrow. I think Sligo might have Longford. I think the two of them really need to win. They just need to keep in touch with Rovers, keep them under a little bit of pressure. We're coming up to a break, and the European stuff is going to start as well, so they need to give themselves an opportunity that when we come back late July, early August, that they're still in the running and we get into the business end of the season.
Great stuff as always, Stewie.
Cheers, Nathan.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fake crowd noise? The Emirates never sounded so good. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.